Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Job Breakdown. Today we'll be taking a look at Machinist, one of the two current range DPS classes. Machinist has a lot of systems, and I don't think all of them synergize very well with each other. But let's get into what the job can do, the missteps that I think the job makes, and my hopes for Shadowbringers to be able to change it. Machinist has a lot of subsystems that don't all synergize very well together, in my opinion. You have Wildfire, which gives you a 10-second period where you can deal as much damage as you can, and in that time period, your damage will be applied at the end of it again, a percentage of it, as you see there. Nice little 5k. It's 25%, so it's not amazing, but it's not terrible either, and it's just extra damage added on. So Wildfire window is what you're really going to be looking for as a Machinist. You say, but that sounds cool. That sounds like the thing that you like when it comes to like Dragoon or Black Mage, is having to balance around a time frame to be able to do a lot of damage. I think it is really cool. But then you add in Gauss Barrel and the heat gauge and how all of this works together. And as you can see, using a weapon skill increases your heat gauge. And even then, I don't think it's too bad. I think that it's manageable. You have the ability to reload, and while you have the ammo in your chamber, you will not add to the heat gauge, which means it can be pretty easy to balance. When you build up enough heat, then you are able to use stronger attacks, and you can ditch some of that heat to be able to do a little bit more damage, or to be able to cool your gun off again if you're about to overheat. But when you overheat, as you see now, we have the secondary version of the attacks, which look cooler, do more damage. Like, Machinist is a really cool, flashy job, right? Like, that looks really cool. The problems really come in for me when you begin trying to balance your heat gauge around your Wildfire, because when you overheat the heat gauge, we'll just go ahead and fill it up here, get a little bit closer, and we'll use Flamethrower to go ahead and just fill it. When you overheat your heat gauge, you do a lot more damage for a brief period of time. You do basically all the damage that you can do, and then I think it's like 20%. And then you don't have access to it for a little bit. And so what this winds up leading to is this situation where you have to maximize for your Wildfires with your heat gauge. And then after 60 seconds, you're able to pull your Gauss Rifle back up, and you can begin building your heat again. Which is where Flamethrower really comes in handy, to build your heat back up to 50 so that you can balance it. It's a lot to try and balance on one job, all while still trying to do damage, all while still trying to avoid mechanics. And your whole timing can get completely destroyed if a mechanic comes up that you forgot about, or if an AoE comes through and clips you, and then you're trying not to die when you were wanting to be able to focus on your Flamethrower and on your heat gauge and trying to keep everything good. And as you can see, it's also really easy to accidentally overheat with your Flamethrower when you're trying to get it just right to be able to play around in that above 50 window. I know there are people in my FC that really like this job and really like the mechanic of balancing it. But for me, Machinist is definitely my least favorite job in the game. I think that where it's at right now is a really tough place to recommend to people. You can set yourself back to 50 using the, what's it called? The Barrel Stabilizer, which is a really cool move, and it's really nice. It's on a 60-second cooldown, so you can Flamethrower up all the way to 80, hit that, and be able to bring it back down to 50, and then be back in this balance of trying to do as much damage as you can, while also managing your heat. But it just feels very often like you're just trying to set up for this window that we're about to hit right here, for Wildfire. And that's fine. Like I said, I know a lot of people that really enjoy that. It just, for me, it's a lot to try and fit in all at one time. And it pays off. A good Machinist will make a big difference. That Wildfire will do a lot of damage just about every minute if the Machinist is playing their cards right. Past what the Machinist brings to the table damage-wise, though, and the problems with the rotation that I have, Machinist is also a support. It has a turret, which is really cool. You can switch between either your Rook or your Bishop. You can also overcharge or overdrive. And when you overdrive, your turret will do quite a bit more damage at the cost of exploding. But as you can see, It's a lot of damage. It's definitely there. It's something not to forget about, and I think a lot of people do forget about it very often. But from there, you also have the ability to get extra crits, the ability to get faster weapon skills. Machinist is also proc-based, which can make it a little bit difficult to balance the heat gauge when you're hoping on procs or when you're hoping for wildfire, which is where you want to rely on your ammo to be able to guarantee a proc. Again, it's just a lot going on with Machinist all at once while you're trying to manage your wildfires and trying to dodge the boss's AoEs and trying to do your mechanics and just keep everything balanced. But it does pay off, and it looks really cool. The Machinist, although it is my least favorite job, I don't hate it by any stretch of the imagination. I think that it's still fun to play. It's just not fun for me to try and play it in progression. I wouldn't bring a Machinist to a raid group. I would probably take my time with other jobs in there instead of trying to balance in Machinist in that. But being a ranged support, Machinist also has access to a couple abilities that we need to highlight, because we're going to talk about them when we get to Bard as well. Dismantle is an amazing ability on a 60-second timer that just flat reduces damage dealt for your target by 10%. You can just take a boss and go, not right now. You see a tank buster coming, throw out that Dismantle, and you'll save your tank a ton of problems. Then you have access to things like Palisade that allow you to increase their defense by 20% or reduce damage taken. It's roughly the equivalence. You have the ability to Refresh, which halves your own enmity and restores MP to your teammates. You have Tactician, which halves your own enmity and restores TP to your teammates. You have some great AoE. I still miss Granado Shot, but Machinist has some really solid AoE between the Bishop Turret and the Flamethrower. I wish there was a way to make Flamethrower do less heat gauge damage, where it costs less heat gauge to use, but Flamethrower does amazing potency. It's just a flat 60 for 10 seconds over and over and over and over and over again, recurring, which is really nice. I think that when it comes to your role actions that you should be bringing, Invigorate's not a bad idea, because you're going to be doing a lot of AoEing in dungeons. Second Wind, of course, and then you should always be bringing Refresh, Tactician, and Peloton, and most likely Palisade as well. If you're not, you should really consider bringing those. But as it is right now, I don't super recommend Machinist to people that are trying to do like high-end raid or prog or anything like that. But if you're just looking for a job that looks really cool and does some cool stuff, yeah, go for Machinist. Machinist, it can do some good damage, and I like it a lot. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. What would I like to see change with Machinist? I would like to see a change with Flamethrower, where maybe it adds a little bit less heat, although, to be fair, it is vital to being able to manage your heat gauge as it is right now. I would like to see maybe a change to the way the heat gauge works, to where your whole job is not based around this one 10-second window. I think Wildfire is really cool, and I don't want to see it go. I think it's very important to the integrity of the job, to what the job is, but as it is right now, the job is just too centered on this 10-second window that is too unreliable in raid. You can't guarantee that you're ever going to be able to get that 10 seconds. And when you pull it off, it's amazing. But when you look at Dragoon and the 30 seconds that it can build up with Nastrond, you look at Summoner and the fact that it can stack its Ether Pact and be able to hold on to it so that it can use it at the right moment. It's just a lot harder for Summoner, or for Machinist, to be able to manage that in the way that Summoner, Dragoon, Monk, some of the other jobs can do. So, I would like some changes to the heat gauge. I would like some changes to Flamethrower. I really think Flamethrower should do a little bit more damage, honestly. Like, I know that seems ridiculous with the damage that it already does, but for the amount of heat that it builds, I really think it should be doing a little bit more damage. Because it feels like Machinist is so far behind Bard when it comes to damage. And with the addition of Dancer coming in as ranged, it'd be nice if we could get some changes to Machinist that make it where it can compare with what it looks like both the other jobs are going to be able to do. It really feels like Machinist should be the damage of the range supports, whereas, you know, Bard and Dancer would have the the more support side of it. Machinist would be the damage side of it, but that's my thoughts on this anyway. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, everybody, I have been Trey. This has been Machinist. And remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Machinist has to offer.